What's up, fam? Welcome to our home. I am Dr. Damon. This is my beautiful wife.
Shantae.
We are the Smiths. This is Richer or Poor Marriage Podcast, where we are contributing to the health and wealth of marriages. You ready, sweetie?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I am ready.
DJ, drop that beat.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Tonight, we want to talk about something that I sort of came up not too long ago. You were having a conversation with one of your sisters, and she asked you the question: is love the most important factor to consider before getting married? Is love the most important factor to consider before getting married? So we're going to talk about that on tonight. We're going to dive in like we normally do. We just jump right on in, you know?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
So my first question to you is, and my wife hates questions where you have to define something, like you have to give your own definition of something versus looking it up in the dictionary or Wikipedia. However, I'm going to ask, how would you define love? And on top of that, do you feel like your definition of love has evolved over the years of our marriage?
So for me, love is complex, right?
Can be very
It's
complex,
complex.
yet
It's
very simple.
multifaceted. It can it can encompass a lot of things, right?
Yep.
It can be a deep affection for someone. And a lot of times I thought love was just simply how they made you feel.
Okay.
But as time went on, I realized it wasn't about a feeling.
Okay. Okay. All
It
right.
wasn't. It had absolutely nothing to do with about feeling how you felt, because sometimes you can love somebody and not necessarily be in love with them in that
Okay.
moment.
So now, before we get to the second question
Okay.
I asked, you just dropped like a bomb, because now you're gonna have to dive deeper into your definition, because you just said love and being in love is not the same thing. That's what you just said. Did you know you
Love
said that?
and being in love is not the same thing.
Okay. All right. So break it down, because people think that love is the same thing as being in love. Cause I've heard people say, before you um go any further, I've heard people say, and we've had the opportunity to actually do some counseling for others, and one of the things that was said was, I love him but I'm not in love with him.
Right.
So when someone says, I love them but I'm not in love with them, what does that mean?
I think when someone says that they love them that and they're not in love with them, is it just means that maybe what their expectation of what love is for them is not being shown in that moment, or they're it's not given what they thought it should be given.
Okay. Okay.
If that makes sense.
So what you're saying is that being in love is based on more expectations?
It could be. It could be, because
Okay.
sometimes you can love somebody and you love you love them because you have experience with them, because you are with them, you love them. But to be in love with somebody is, I love everything about you. I love the essence of who you are, the core of who you are. I love everything about you. When I'm like, for me being in love, I just don't love you. I am in love with you. I'm in love with the very essence of you, the core of you.
So what it sounds to me like you're saying is, for those who see love, typically you're in love, and when you're in love, you're willing to overlook the flaws.
Yes.
But when you say you love, it's because you recognize and understand the flaws, and you have chosen to love anyway.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Thank you for translating. Yes, thank you.
Because, and that's why we're going to talk about it, because people say all the time, like, Doc, I love them, but I'm not in love with them anymore. And essentially what it's saying is, I was in that place of infatuation where it didn't matter what they said or did. I could completely overlook all of that. But now that I'm in this relationship and I understand that there are some difficulties and some challenges, there are some disagreements, we don't always see eye to eye, they have some flaws. And now I'm not necessarily willing to overlook those flaws because they are like beating me upside my head, not literally, but they're beating me upside my head. And I'm not willing to subject myself to that any longer. So I'm not in love with them anymore. I just love them enough to recognize that they aren't the perfect person I thought they were.
Right. And I think love is a choice as well. Love is a choice. You have a choice to not only love them, but you have a choice to be in love with them.
Absolutely.
Because there are some things that we may see in our spouse that we may not necessarily like, or we would like to see change. But of course, change is not something that we do. That's something that, as an individual, you have to work towards, right? So we don't look to change the person, we look to change ourselves, or look at who we are as opposed to trying to change them. But I think that when we do see flaws that we don't necessarily like, that, we can ask God, like, what is it in me that is being irritated by what I don't like or what I don't see?
Okay. All right. That's interesting, because have you always felt that way, or has that changed over the years?
Um, I think it probably changed over the years.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is because we're asking the question, is love the most important thing to consider before you get married, right? And when you sit back from a different perspective and you look at things from a completely different vantage point, right? Now, 22 years in, you can say, I don't know if love was the most important factor. Maybe it was for you,
I don't know if I'm sorry.
but, maybe it wasn't. Because right now we're asking the question, is it the most important factor before you get married?
I don't, I,
But you have the benefit of hindsight. So what do you
so
think?
I think that you should feel like you should know that you love this person to a certain extent. Love should be there. I think that to be in love with somebody, that can occur over time. So I don't think that that has to be something, to be in love with somebody is something that is necessarily, we would like to think that that you would be in love with them before you marry them. But I think that love can evolve over time. It's from love to being to love to being in love.
Okay. I could see that happening for some people because, you know, the reality is many people get married for a number of different reasons,
Right.
right? Some people get married because of financial security. Some people get married because that person makes them feel safe or makes them feel wanted or appreciated. People get married because they want to get out of a bad situation or they want to get out of their parents' home. Like there are many different reasons why people choose to get married that are not necessarily love or the idea of being in love.
Right. I think even what you said, like some people get in, if some people get married because of stability, right? Right now that they may not feel like they're stable, but they get married to be stable. So I believe that that's change all around that's taking place from being unstable to being stable, right? So there's always change and growth that is going to take place in a marriage.
Right. So have you always felt that? It sounds like you're saying
I've
that
all
your idea of love has evolved because initially before you got married you felt like you were in love, right?
But I can't even say I knew that I loved you when we got married, but I don't know if I ever said, "Oh, I'm in love," if that makes sense, cuz I don't recall me saying like
What do you mean? What do you mean you never said you were in love?
because we I don't recall like I'm in love with you. It was just like I love you. And for me, love was love. Love was love. Love was in love. Love was all of the above. So it wasn't like I was saying like I love them, but I'm not in love with them. So it was more like a combination. I loved you, so and I was in love. So it was a combination to me. So I don't know if I differentiated the two, love versus being in love.
Sure. I mean,
I knew
that
that I
makes
love
sense.
you.
Yeah, because I can remember you saying, I love you. And I was like,
Girl, you don't love me.
you don't love me. You don't even know me. What do you mean? Because to me, it was like, I felt like you hadn't had enough time to get to know who I was. Right. And I've heard someone say, don't get married for love. Right.
Because love.
Because they hear people
Yeah.
say all the time, I love them, but I can no longer live with them. Or I love them, but I'm no longer in love with them. Or I love them, but we cannot be together. So, what essentially people were saying is that love is not enough to keep a marriage together. But that's because of the definition of love. That's why I asked you how you define love. Because I think the definition that people have of love is sometimes wanting, is lacking. But when you come to a full understanding of what love is, then you go into it with your eyes wide open and you understand fully, okay, maybe love is a little more than what I have to give or what I expected. And
Mm-hmm.
so the reason I say that is because I think that going into a marriage, love is important, but you also want to go into it with knowledge, understanding, and wisdom,
True.
right? Knowledge means that you know, so you've taken the time to get to know someone, right? You've taken the time to learn about them. You've taken the time to talk to other people to figure out who they are. So you're not just getting the image that they give you, right? So you gain a bit of knowledge, and then from that knowledge you have to have understanding. Like it takes time not only to know someone but to understand them. Like to understand like why do they act that way? Why do they do that? Like I can know it, but if I don't understand it, then all I do is know it. It's like people who learn how to perform a medial task. Like they learn something at a job through training and they do it repetitiously, so they do it over and over and over again. So they know how to do it, but they don't know why they do it because they don't understand. And so when you talk about people getting together considering marriage, it's one thing to know someone,
Right.
but it's a completely different thing to actually understand them, right?
And I think understanding someone takes time,
It takes
right?
time.
So I think that when you and I got, when we got married, like I said, for me, love and love, it was all intertwined. So I knew that I loved you, but over time, I grew more, fell more in love with you when I really began to know you, because there's still a knowing, getting to know a person as you get married. And so as you begin, you start your life with that person, you begin to find out things. Well, I don't necessarily like this, or oh, I didn't know he was like this, I didn't know he was as romantic as he is, oh, I didn't know that his, it was just different things that you learn about your spouse. And it could either be good things or it could be bad things, right?
Right.
But
But
even in the bad things, you can still, for me, I think that even in the bad things, you can ask. Sometimes it's not them, sometimes it's us. So it takes a lot of self evaluation as well. Instead of me looking at you, I need to look at myself. Why am I feeling that way?
yeah. So I think what you said is important, and I'll just add on to my thought because I was saying that there's a difference between knowledge and knowing and understanding, but there's also a difference when you think about wisdom too, because wisdom is actually the ability to apply what you know and understand. And so that's a completely different level. So I can know you from taking the time to spend time with you, but if I don't actually apply what I learn about you to our relationship, then it's of no benefit. So for instance, if I know that you do not feel comfortable with me riding alone in a car with a woman, right? If I know that, I then have to take the time to understand, okay, why does she feel that way, right? And so, like you said, that's something you get over time, right? Trying to understand, like, okay, well, she feels this way because she feels like I could possibly put myself in a compromising position. She may not trust the person that I'm riding with, or she doesn't know the person very well. Okay, all right, I can understand. I can see from her perspective. Okay, now the next step is for me to take wisdom and apply that to our relationship.
Right.
So that means, okay, if that's how she feels and I know it, I understand why she feels that way. Let me ease her mind by actually taking myself out of situations like that that would make her feel uncomfortable, right? So there's a level of not only knowing and understanding, but actually applying what you learn about that person to the relationship. So I think going into a marriage, yes, it requires more than love, but love is a key portion of it. But it also requires that level of, okay, I know you, I understand your quirkiness, and I'm willing to take what I've learned about you and actually apply it to our relationship so that we grow
Mm-hmm.
and we can come to some sort of agreement before we actually get to the altar,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, like we said, when we first started dating, you said I love you first, right? Let's just put that on the table. She said it first. No. But my idea or my concept of love has actually expanded over the course of our marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because initially going into it, I felt as if people tie love into romantic feelings, sexual feelings, intimate feeling,
Mm-hmm.
an emotional response. And to me, it was much more than that. So that's why I was a bit hesitant and a little more um, delayed in my verbal pronouncement of my love to you, if that makes sense. I don't know why I keep saying if that makes sense, because to me it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world. But I want to make sure it makes sense to you.
It makes sense.
So, for me personally, I would say my definition of love has grown over the years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I think each individual has their own definition of what love looks like to them. They do. And
Right.
when you have your own definition of what love looks like, what you see is going to be based on your perception of what it is. So if it does not look like what you perceive it to be, then it's not going to be love to you.
Yeah, I think people get love and compatibility mixed up. Sometimes I think people feel as if because we're compatible, I should be in love or I should love this person. Versus if we're not compatible, then there's no potential for love to be there. And I sort of I disagree with that a
Right.
little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I think compatibility is important when you talk about marriage, but compatibility also is something that grows over time. But you have to be intentional about it.
Right.
And so, you know, we talk about marriages that are arranged. And when you think about arranged marriages where people who never meet each other until they say I do,
Yeah.
um, a lot of those marriages last. So the question is, how do marriages like that last if there wasn't quote unquote love before they said I do? The $100 million question.
Work. I just think that marriage is work.
It's work.
It is work. It's for adults, those that are willing to be mature, those who are willing to accept change,
Hmm.
those who are willing uh, to know certain things, and willing to use the wisdom, as you said, from what you know. So um, it's trial and error. It's work.
Yeah.
It's just work, and it is work.
Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is that often people, when they think about love, they think about love languages, right? And they say, "Oh, I need to make sure he knows what my love language is. My love language is gifts."
Mm-hmm.
He needs to shower me with gifts, right? Or my love language is quality time. I need to make sure they spend quality time with me, right? And so I think in the day and time we live in, people are more apt to base love on what they consider their love language.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, I feel like those definitions of love are just a bit lacking, because what happens when the person doesn't communicate to you in the way that you desire, what do you do? Like, we're married now, we've been married for 22 years in August, but what would happen if I didn't communicate your love language the way you expected or desired? Does that mean I don't love you?
No.
Does that mean we're not compatible?
And even as you saying that, I'm the Love Boat, right? Let's talk about the show, The Love Boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like a boat, it rocks with the waves and with the storms, right? That is what marriage does, right? Love, when you're in a marriage, you love somebody. This with the storms, the boat rocks. The love boat, the love boat rocks at times, and so you have to figure out how we get to get the waters at a steady to get steady, so that it so it can be a smooth sail at times, but then that boat gonna rock again throughout. So it's like a rocky situation, right?
Yeah, I think it's important that number one, we both be in the boat.
Yes, we both gotta be in the boat.
We both need to be in the
You
boat.
both have to be in the boat, not one. And yeah, no, no, you both gotta be in the boat because it takes two,
It takes two
and the two shall become
become one.
one.
Yeah,
But it has to be two willing participants.
there you go.
So when the the love boat is rocking, there still have to be uh, at least one participant at that. What was that we heard? That was so
Good
go
friend.
ahead. Yes.
So, we had a good friend who said this. We we were having a conversation with him and his wife about marriage and the fact that I think they've been married, what, 27 years?
One day been long,
A little
long.
bit longer than we
Yeah.
have. And he was saying for them, the reason they're still together is because they both
Didn't give up at the same time.
have chosen not to leave at the same
Same time.
time, which meant, there were times where one wanted to leave and one was adamant about staying, and then vice versa. Somebody else wanted to leave and the other one was adamant about staying. And they never decided to leave at the same time, which gave them hope that it was possible for them to stay together. And so, we kind of chuckled about that, but I thought that was relevant to understand that, marriage is work and it requires two willing
Two
participants.
willing participants.
But
Yes.
even in those moments when someone wants to walk away, you got to have that person that's willing to fight for it and to give the other one some space and time to get back to that place. But if both people are willing to walk away and no one's willing to fight for it, then, you tend to end in divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know who you are, buddy. Good friend. So, um, so yeah. But the reason, I mentioned the love language, because there are times where people are married and either they haven't communicated what those love languages are, or they expect someone to read their minds, or um, even when people try to give their best, sometimes they fall short,
Mm-hmm.
right? I remember talking to you one time, and we were talking about you were talking about a relationship that you had with, I don't know if it was a friend or a sibling or something, but you were saying that you got to allow people to be who they are, and just because your 100% looks like this, they may be given 100%, but it doesn't look like your 100%.
Right.
And you have to be okay because they're giving you as much as they can give on that level, and you have to understand that. I think for me, the definition of love ties back into what the Bible has to say about love.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we really understood the definition of love, then where we fall short in our marriages, we would be able to fill those gaps.
Yes.
And you mentioned the love boat, like the holes in the boat would be able to be plugged so that water wouldn't be able to get in and sink our ship
Mm-hmm.
if we fully understood what love is. We were having, I'm a shout out a friend who says that love is giving, said love is giving. And the reason they feel that way is based on John 3:16, where it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave
Mm-hmm.
his only son." And so understanding that love requires a level of giving. And if you take that mindset that it's always better to give than to
To receive.
receive, you understand that if you give your best, then ultimately someone is going to want to reciprocate that back to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, I don't know, just bear with me for a second because I wanted to pull this up because we've talked about it before. And, I have my favorite line in this particular scripture when we talk about love because my favorite part says, "Love keeps no record of wrongdoings," right? And, I quote that part all the time. Love keeps no record of wrongs. Not that I want to go out and just do whatever,
Right. No,
but
because
it's
these.
understanding
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, I have to walk in forgiveness. And so even if you do something because I love you, if I say I love you, then that means even though I may not feel like it, I ultimately have to figure out, okay, how do I get to a place where I can forgive you for where I've been hurt?
And love don't hold on to receipts.
And love don't hold on to receipts.
Because we live in a time where we are uh, we're keeping record of or receipts of what somebody did to us, right? But love doesn't hold receipts.
And so there was something that it says that I could give away everything I own to feed the poor and to offer my body to be burned as a martyr. But without the motive of love, I gain nothing of value. Which means that I could be the best person I want to be, and I could be a saint. But if I don't love with a pure love, then it means nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like I could give everything I own to the world, but if I don't love, it means nothing. And so if we tie that into our marriage and our relationships, it means that yeah, you can do a lot of things and you can say a lot of things, but really what it boils down to is the motive of your heart,
Yes.
right? And so you know, I know that's a little deep, but to me, that's what it boils down to. Like, what are the motives and intentions of your heart? And if you say you love someone, then that's going to ultimately be displayed in how you care for them.
Yes, how you care for them, your actions,
Right.
your actions.
And so, from that vantage point, love is important because love is an action word. It's not just talking, and it's not just gifts, but it's much more. It's much more deeper than that. It's how.
It's not money. It's not about money. It's not about who makes the most money. For some people, it is, but what is not about that?
It can't be. It can't be nothing. It's it's more intangible than tangible.
True. That's so good. Yes, it is.
And it can only be demonstrated. Like,
So even with you, like I feel like in our marriage, I feel like you demonstrate your love. So it's not just you saying it, but you actively demonstrate your love for me every single day.
right.
Every
So
single day.
Bible says love is patient.
Yes. Thank you,
So
Lord.
that means when you getting on my last nerve,
You don't say that word.
I don't say it. Why? Because love is patient.
Yeah. So
So even though there are times where I feel frustrated because we may not necessarily be on the same playing
page.
field,
Yes.
not just the same page, but the same field, love is patient.
Yes. And love is kind.
Love is kind.
Yes.
It says love is gentle and consistently kind to all. It refuses to be jealous. Think about that. So those people who walk around with jealousy, like, nah, that's mine. Or because I see you talking to somebody else, a harmless conversation, you talking, I'm over here burning up inside like, don't she know she belong to me? Why she over there talking to that dude? What's up? Who is that? Let me go over there and handle this right now. Like, nah. Love is not jealous. There,
It's not.
of course, there's a healthy expectation for fidelity and faithfulness, but it's not jealous. Like, jealousy is one of those it's one of those desires that impact the way you treat people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because someone who's jealous has the potential to be violent. Someone who's jealous has the potential to hurt others verbally, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you have to be really careful with that. And if you see it, you have to understand like that's not love. The word says love is not jealous.
Jealous is love is not being controlling. It's not controlling your spouse.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not that.
And it says love does not brag about one's achievements nor inflate its own importance. That's crazy. Like, it's not gonna blow your head and make you think you bigger than who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Now you make me sometimes think that I'm bigger than who I am.
Well, I'm doing my job.
and I love you for it.
I'm doing
I
my
go out
job,
into the
baby.
world fully
I pumps my
confident
man
about
up.
the man that I am
Yep, I pumps him up.
because I have you at home telling
I
me I
pump
can
you
go out
up.
into the world
That's
and be
right.
the man. And so I'm grateful for that, but at the same time I have to understand that there's some humility involved.
Yes.
And humility is that harness power, is understanding like I know who I am. So what the world thinks about me will never diminish who I am because I'm fully confident in who I am. I'm confident in who God created me to be. So I can be humble and at the same time walk with power and authority and knowing who I am
That's
without my
right.
head being big.
That's right.
And,
Yep.
and so love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seek its own honor. So think I'm not gonna make you be ashamed. Like I'm not going to make you feel shame. Like if I love you, I'm not gonna come at you in a hurtful manner, right? I'm not gonna make you feel, and you may be able to speak on this because you have girlfriends, and I'm sure y'all talk a lot more than guys do.
Mm-hmm.
But some relationships, guys can make a woman feel inferior. He can make her feel unattractive. And she could be the most beautiful woman in the world. But she can have a man who makes her feel less than by the way he talks to her and the way he treats her. And because she feels like she's in love with him or she loves him, she accepts that
Accepts it.
and she takes it on and walks around with shame,
Mm-hmm.
right? Love doesn't do that.
Love does not do that. It doesn't.
You participate in the conversation? Lord, have mercy.
Don't do that.
I know you so enamored by the word. I'll stick with the word. Let's see what else is. It says love does not disrespect.
Love does not
Now that
disrespect.
shit. Now you just said we did a podcast and you said it's certain things that in your eyes are completely disrespectful,
A man looking at
and we just read love does not disrespect.
doesn't disrespect. I can't. Yeah, love does not disrespect.
That's all you got for me.
I'm thinking about love does not disrespect. It doesn't, and I can honestly say you don't do anything to disrespect me. You don't. You don't. Just like I honor you. I believe that you honor me as a wife. You care about how I feel. So you take my feelings into consideration at all times.
How about this? Love is not easily irritated or quick to take offense.
Don't
Now
do
we could
that.
talk about that.
Don't do that. You
We can talk about that. We can talk about that. Cause there have been many times where I've had to say, sweetie, I'm not against you. Like we're on the same side. We're on the same team. I'm not trying to offend you, right? And so the word says love is not easily offended.
well, I get offended sometimes.
We all do, but the key word is easily offended.
Am I easily offended? At times I am.
Hey, call a spade a
It
spade.
is what it is. I am easily offended at
But you're working on
I'm
it.
working on it.
There you go.
I'm a work in progress. Yep. I'm working on all things in a marriage. I'm working on it. because it's
And I can
work.
respect that. I respect that
When
because
I mess up and I'm easily offended, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But I thank God that you you allow me to be imperfect.
you said mouthful right there.
You allow me to be imperfect,
I mean,
and
that
you
goes
give me
both ways.
grace.
That goes both
Yeah,
ways.
and you give
Grace.
me grace. You give me grace, and that's what we have to learn. And in these relationships, we have to give our spouse grace. We
Yeah.
have to give them some grace.
Yeah, and that ties back into not easily being irritated or quick to take offense. But how about this one? Love joyfully celebrates honesty and finds no delight in what is wrong. Like, what tripped me out is people always want to be right. They all, even when they wrong,
Even when
they
they
want to be
wrong.
right. I saw this video on I guess it was IG or Facebook or something, and this guy was at the chalkboard, right, and he was talking about his relationship with his wife, and he said if he's wrong and his wife is right, his wife is right. If he's right and his wife is wrong, his wife is right. If they're both wrong, his wife is right
That's right.
somehow.
That's right. She right. That's a wise man. That's a
That's a
wise.
wise man.
That's a wise man. That's a wise. Because I mean, that goes with choosing your battles, right?
Absolutely.
That goes with choosing your battles,
You
and that's
know,
what we have to do in a marriage: choose our battles.
understand peace in the house, right?
Yes, and peace means a lot to us, right? In our house.
And so it's not love does not celebrate person being wrong. So it's like I knew you was wrong. I told you. I'm dancing like I told you you was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we
Love
don't
don't
do
do that.
that.
No, we don't.
We don't do that.
But we did have. Remember that time we were doing the podcast
Yeah,
and
you
I
was
swore you
wrong.
down,
And you was
and I
wrong.
was wrong, and I had to come back and say, "Sweetie, I was wrong. I apologize. I got that wrong."
I had proof. I had the receipts,
You
but I
did,
wasn't trying to bring up the receipts.
but you did dance a little.
It's the first time for everything.
No, we not getting down like that.
No, I'm just saying it was the first time. That was the first time
Yeah,
that you got caught in being wrong.
yeah. You had video
And so
evidence.
now
We threw the flag.
I'm questioning the times that you convinced me I was wrong. And I
Oh
was
no,
right.
please. Now, if we gonna actually have receipts, I'm sure it's a lot more times you was wrong than right. But we not celebrating that. We gonna keep it moving. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing the best for others.
Yes. Yes.
It never stops believing the best. So that means even when we fall short, I still think the best of you. And that's what love is. And so, you know, that's why that's why initially I said I don't think people fully understand what love means, cuz yes, love is important going into a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to know what it means, right? You need to know that it requires some patience. It requires you to be gentle. It requires you not to take pleasure in wrong. It requires you to think the best of someone else. It requires you to deal with people with honesty, but to not make them feel shame. Like all of that is encompassed
Yeah.
in what love is.
It requires humility.
It requires
You have to
humility.
have some humility even in your marriage. Yep.
Love never gives up.
It never gives up.
So, yes, it is important, but there's a difference between love and being in love. And love says, okay, that 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 goes away. But
Mhm.
love never fails.
Love never fails.
So once you enter into a marriage, yeah, that in love phase may wane a little because it depends on what it was built on. Like, was it built on the looks?
Mm-hmm.
Was it built on the intellect? Was it built on the finances?
Was it built on the sex?
Was it built on the sex?
Because, baby, that will pass when them bills got to get paid. You ain't worried about no sex.
You worry about them bills.
Worried about them bills.
And that in love
It
fades.
fades.
And what's left is what love really is. And love is all those things we talked
All of
about.
them.
But you don't get to that place without knowledge, understanding, and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't apply any of that without understanding what it's going to require and how to do it.
That's right.
So, you know, that's why I said my definition of love has grown over the years because, you know, initially it's like, yeah, I love you. We stood at the altar and we said, I do. Like, I'm not going to walk away from my vows, my covenant, because I love you. But then I had to learn love is more than me giving you my last name or giving you my seed or making you think you see stars.
Yes. It's more than that.
It's much more than that.
And love covers a multitude of sin.
It does. So, you know, is it important? Absolutely. Is it the most important? Absolutely. But you need to know what it is.
You need to know what it is. And love look different for everybody. Everybody, it looks different. But if you really want to get the true definition of love, go to the Bible.
Go to the word.
Yeah.
And understand the Bible says that God loved us, that he gave.
Yeah.
And so it comes back to what are you willing to give?
What are you? Oh, that's good.
The Bible says husbands love your wife like Christ loved the church. He was willing to sacrifice his life because of his love. And so as a man, I have to be willing to sacrifice my life, my well-being, who I am because of my love for you.
Absolutely.
And you have to be willing to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think, is love the most important thing before you get married? Absolutely. But you need to know what it is.
You need to know what it is.
You need to know and understand the depth of what love is. And it's not just a feeling or emotion.
That's it. That's it.
It's,
Okay.
it's so much more.
So much more. So much more.
So much more. So I think that
Excuse me.
we'll close out with this. Is there any advice you would give to couples who are deeply in love but face significant obstacles or differences?
Yes, my advice would be to search your heart and find out what you need to change as a wife, as a spouse, and allow God to do the changing of your spouse and not you be the one who try to change them. That would be my advice.
Okay, that's good advice. I can remember one of the things I used to always pray is, Father, show me how to see things from my wife's perspective so that I can better understand who she is and
Yes.
so that I can understand why she does some of the things she do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can truly say that because I asked him, he's done that for me. Because I
Yeah.
think I understand you pretty well. Sometimes,
You do. You really do.
and that's why I love you.
That's why I love you. You are amazing. You grace me often. You do. We need that. We need that in a marriage. We do. We do. I don't take that for granted. Sometimes I'm like, I know he want to wring my neck, but you always grace me and you always show me love and kindness.
Well, there you have it. You're looking at a man who knows how to show his woman some love.
Facts.
We hope we didn't bore you with our stories. We hope we didn't bore you with our laughter. And definitely, we hope we did not bore you with our love.
Yes.
This is Rich or Poor Marriage Podcast, where we are contributing to the health and wealth of marriages. Be blessed, fam.
Peace.